Time now for your first segment on the SportsMax Zone. The West Indies fitness policy, which requires players to meet a minimum standard to be eligible for selection, has for some time been a contentious issue. Hetmyer, Evan Lewis, Sherfane Rutherford, Sunil Narayan and Odin Smith are just some of the players who've fallen foul of the policy since 2020. The policy dictates that once a player fails to meet the minimum standard, they are automatically ineligible for selection, but it doesn't mean everyone within the halls of Cricket West Indies is in agreement. We understand here at SportsMax Zone that the West Indies Medical and Sports Sciences Committee had suggested that players be selected and brought to Jamaica ahead of the Ireland series, regardless of their fitness levels. They would then be tested, all under similar conditions, and given targets to meet over a specified period. If they did not meet those targets, then they would be ineligible for the T20 World Cup set for Australia later this year. Now, we reached out to Cricket West Indies President Ricky Skerritt, who said he had received no documented request for policy change. However, he did point out that an overall review of the entire selection process is in train. Former West Indies batting coach Toby Radford has also been vocal about the fitness policy, saying there are inconsistencies with how it is applied. In an article published by the Guyana Times last week, he's quoted saying, "We've seen with the T20 World Cup that there were people that went to the World Cup that did not pass the fitness test. I would like to see an above-board, robust selection process. If you are going to use fitness, you have to be consistent with it. Everyone has to be treated the same way, tested the same way. At the moment, it has been used to select whoever the CWI or the CWI want to select." Now, the West Indies Director of Cricket, Jimmy Adams, has in the past explained that some players are exempt from the minimum standard. He explained that players can be exempt for one of four reasons. One is age, one is trading history, one is injury history, and one has to do with the physiological issues. And in any one of those four areas, Jimmy Adams said, exceptions might be granted to players. So, Lance, is there any merit to this suggestion or recommendation by the medical committee?
I would say yes, George, because if you look at the optics, there is a lot wrong with what we are seeing, and it's very, very hard to explain medically. And from a fitness perspective, the inconsistencies that we see glaringly on the field, with some players coming out of the CPL looking to be fit and ready and performing, Sherfane Rutherford among them, and then we hear that they've had fallen short of the fitness requirements for the World Cup. Then at the World Cup we see people playing for the West Indies who are obviously less physically able than some of the players who were deemed unfit. So the optics suggest that a new strategy or a new policy should be at least looked at.
Well, you know, it's tempting to go with the argument that you've posited. And in considering what Toby Radford has said, it is you're invited to find sense in what the gentleman has said. I would say, however, though, that the reason for the Radford statement and the reason for those who would have said that, you know, yes, you need to change the policy as it is now, is perhaps because certain favoured players are falling foul of the policy, coming into conflict with it, falling foul, yeah? And so they're being excluded by virtue of falling foul of the policy. So I'm saying it's not that there's anything wrong with the policy itself, but when some person who has access to a microphone does not meet the required standard and does not get considered for a series, we say, oh, you know what, I think we need to change the policy, rather than someone looking at the policy and saying, you know what, as it is, the policy is biased to some people and exists as a disadvantage point or a hurdle, an obstacle for other people. And in that, I may have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I would add to that, though, George, that you use the word favoured players.
Yes.
And I'm suggesting that there are some favoured players who have benefited by the policy of having exemptions or being excused because they have fallen below the fitness level that any one looking on from the outside would feel that this player isn't fit enough.
Yeah, but if you examine what Jimmy Adams said as to be the four
Yeah.
reasons for people to be given exemptions, those make sense, and you will never, ever have a situation where all players must be subject to the same number of tests and to be able to meet the same standards, because physiologically, people are different by virtue of bone formation, bone structure, and injury history. A man's knee may not be able to bend 43 degrees,
yes.
but somebody else is maybe be able to bend 55 degrees. And so the flexibility and the suppleness and ability to sprint may not be the same. And so you have to have built-in exemptions. So what I'm hearing is as if some people are saying that the issue of exemptions is a bad thing and you should have a one-size-fits-all. It can't work like that. And you're going to go... With what is being proposed, with the little of what we hear is being proposed, you are still going to have the issue of some players not meeting the standard. No matter what standard you set, someone is not going to meet that standard. The only standard that someone will not fall foul of is no standard. And are we saying that there should be no standard to be eligible for selection, that you should meet the standard in order to be able to matriculate into the group that we pick from for a team?
Yeah,
That's rubbish.
Well, let's play devil's advocate here, because one of Jimmy Adams's points of exemption would be age. Let's say at 42 years old, Chris Gale's age limits him from getting past certain levels of fitness.
Yes.
Does that by itself then say that he shouldn't have made the team?
No, but again,
because what it does as it now stands is give a free ride to someone who could be marginal, but because of the Cricket West Indies policy on being soft on some players, given whatever the reasons may be, some players are going to benefit from it and may not be deserving.
I hear you on that, but
yes.
so I'm going to answer it this way. A 23-year-old who, Alex Ferguson's phrase again, talking about the referee Alan Wiley,
yes,
is as fit as a butcher's dog. And butcher's dogs are fit because you have to fight for the meat, so you have to be very fit.
Yes.
A 23-year-old is as fit as a butcher's dog who aces the fitness standard and sets new highs, record highs, comparable with the best in the world anywhere doing the similar yo-yo test. Yeah. Is compared to a Chris Gale who at 42 can't cover do the tasks in the way that this 23-year-old can. And you're saying, well, it is obvious. The 23-year-old is fitter, so he has to play. No, because what does a 23-year-old have?
But you're making a general comparison, George.
Yes.
I'm speaking specifically of the World Cup.
Yes.
Chris was averaging 15.
But I'm saying...
Chris was averaging 15 or 14 going into the World Cup with his performances, and then he doesn't measure up fitness-wise because... he measures up fitness-wise because the standards aren't very high for him. And he's in the team. And there are players who appear fit and are performing and don't make the team because they were deemed to have fallen short.
But you say that as if you found the nuclear point, my friend, and I'm suggesting you haven't, because I'm going to give you this.
Yes.
When you say those players are performing, what do you mean by perform? And don't answer the question because I can answer it for you.
Yes.
You drew for the wrong descriptor. That's not a problem, because in the heat of argument you can do that.
Caribbean Premier League. I said Caribbean Premier League.
And when you say perform, are the scores?
You want me to adjust the word?
Hold on.
You want me to adjust it?
No. You see the need to adjust it, so please adjust it.
Outperformed Chris Gale.
Outperformed.
Yes.
All right, fine.
I'm still with perform.
Fine. Okay.
Outperformed Chris Gale.
All right. So in the most immediate tournament leading into the World Cup, they would have outperformed Chris.
Yes.
And you're saying that on the strength of that and their superior fitness, altogether, that suggests that they will do at the World Cup something greater than Chris Gale in his current state of fitness is capable of doing.
I'm not a prophet. I'm not a prophet. I'm saying they would merit their place in the team.
Lance, because guess what? Guess why?
Have.
I'm saying again, you have to take a player's record into comparison. Remember, we're not talking about 42-year-old Dwayne Leverock. We're talking about 42-year-old Chris Gale, who has a mountain of runs in his record, which suggests
in the distant past.
In the past.
Distant past, George. Say it. You have to say it. Distant past.
There are peaks in Chris Gale's distant past that aren't in some of the 23-year-olds' futures.
I agree with that.
Okay, good.
I agree with that.
So I'm saying to you, so we're doing practical comparisons.
Okay, yes,
I'm saying you have to make an allowance for any handicap, pun intended, that someone like Chris Gale may have to exert physical drills in the specified time and at the specified rate of repetition,
yes,
you have to give an allowance for that, considering this man's record and ability and capacity to perform, go to performance again.
Yeah, yeah.
A 23-year-old who's coming off a good tournament where he's not set the world alight, because there's nobody in the CPL who averaged 80 runs or 70 or had a strike rate throughout the tournament playing 5 or more matches of 200 plus. There's nobody like that. We're talking about we're talking about West Indies standards, low standards. So, so a man averages 35. We say he performed at the CPL, because 35 in the CPL is a good average, Lance. So that's what I'm saying. So you have to take a lot of things into consideration when you're selecting from among very ordinary talents and talents who are past their best. But you have to put a squad together for a World Cup. That's what you have to do. Then you have a lot of things come into consideration alongside the fitness. And you can't judge a Chris Gayle, and we just use Chris Gayle as the example here, folks. You can't judge a Chris Gayle against some of these players and mark it along the lines that you've suggested is the point I'm making.
Yeah, but I want to suggest as well, George, that part of the opposition to Chris Gayle's being included in the West Indies team had very little to do with his fitness. It was all about his non-performance. A lot of people who had argued against Chris Gayle's selection weren't even going the fitness route. They were just saying Chris Gayle isn't as sharp, he isn't seeing the ball as well, and he isn't scoring any runs. So we haven't even touched the fitness issue yet, which we can. And that is where, if we go to the fitness level, it puts Chris Gayle's selection into an even more illogical decision.
But to be fair, Lance, what you say is partially the truth. Because those who lamented Chris Gayle's poor form and used it as the whip to beat him about his World Cup selection, they were saying the man isn't performing and he isn't even fit enough to run singles. He isn't even fit enough to take a sharp two. And you can guarantee if he takes 2 sharp twos in an over,
he'll be tired.
He's so tired that he's going to get out very, very soon. So fitness was also a part of why people lamented Chris Gayle's selection.
I wonder what Fazeer Mohammed's take will be on all this.
We can hear him after the break, can't we? Let's go to the break and bring a very wise man of cricket who must be wondering what those 2 jumpy birds are talking about in this segment. Let's take the break and come right back. Fazeer Mohammed lurks on the other side.